Bites.
Shut up, crime.
All right. Party people in the place to be, vandals, and whatever might else be lurking out there in the darkness. I am Zero G. That is my generic superhero name for this episode. And joining me today, we have Joe. Like always, Joe, what we talking about today, man?
Today we're going to be talking about a James Gunn joint called Super that came out in 2010. Basically, this movie is about a down on his luck guy whose wife leaves him, and he has a epiphany to become a superhero to try to win or save his not departed, but estranged wife, or she leaves him, and he wants to win her back by becoming a superhero. And then mayhem and craziness ensues.
Yeah, like this movie. Oh, dude, this movie is definitely different. I would actually categorize it as being somewhat disturbing. Would you say that that's the
It's
case?
it's extremely disturbing. All the characters are suffer from some kind of distress or uh, life-changing event where they are not mentally well. Like they need help. All the characters in this movie would definitely benefit from therapy or having a therapist to talk to, because there's a lot of craziness and mayhem and wackiness that goes on in this movie.
Yeah, out of all of his work since leaving Trauma, this film seems the most like a trauma movie for me. It reminds me a lot of, say, like Toxic Avenger, but it's even more cutthroat than that because at least Toxic Avenger had some really funny parts. But this movie disguises itself as a comedy, but it's actually really not very funny if you pay attention and, like you said, like see what's wrong with all these characters. Like you'd feel like a total asshole for laughing at anything in this movie, right?
Well, I don't know. I laughed at a few things in the movie. So, I mean, it's definitely an extremely dark comedy. So, if you're into that, you're going to love this movie. But, I mean, it's well done. It's well handled. I mean, you need to add a little comedy into this. Otherwise, it would be a very heavy movie to watch and get through because, like we said, it's pretty intense. And the subject matter isn't always easy to watch as you're going through this movie. So yeah, I mean, I think that it was necessary to sprinkle a little humor in here every now and then. But I think the humor is comes from just how extreme and the characterization of these characters are just so extreme and ridiculous that you have to laugh at it. Just like, uh, well, we'll talk about one character which I find is done to an extreme, which makes him funny, which I'm talking about Elliot Page. If people aren't in the know, well, Ellen Page transitioned into the name Elliot Page. He refers to himself as Elliot Page now. So if people aren't up to speed on that, that happened about a year ago. So now it's no longer Ellen Page, it's Elliot Page. And in this movie, his character, man, it's just off the wall. In the beginning, you think the character is going to be the most normal, the most down to earth, but in the end, once she gets the costume on, she becomes the sidekick to the main character, who is played by Rainn Wilson, who you may know from the American version of The Office. He plays the main protagonist, and she becomes his sidekick, or he becomes his sidekick. And once the costume goes on, there's like this switch in the brain and becomes a total like deranged character who's just loses it and has no self-control or on the situation or his own being. So yeah, it's off the wall, and some of the parts are pretty funny with the extreme reactions he has or she has during the scenes that she's in or he's in, because in the movie it's a girl, so I'm going to refer to Elliot as she for the character. Just
Yeah.
I know it'll get confusing, but in the movie, the sidekick is a girl, so I'll be referring to the character as a she. Yeah, I hope that's not too confusing for everyone.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, like if you play a female character in a movie, you're playing a she, and he played a
Yeah,
she.
yeah.
And you're that is probably one of my favorite parts of the film when they go and beat up the guy that keyed her friend's car, and she is gonna murder this dude with like a
With the
trophy.
statue, she's just loses. She's just beside herself. She's beyond. She's out of her mind. Like she just completely gets enthralled in this, like almost like the adrenaline takes over, and she just doesn't think anymore. And it's just pure instincts, adrenaline, and emotion. And yeah, he like Frank is the main protagonist, which who is the Crimson Bolt, has to stop her because she's about to crush the guy's head with a bronze horse statue. And it's it's always funny because after, when she's calm, she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me," and like trying to downplay it. But yeah, there's other scenes that come back with the car, the car scene where she saves
Oh yeah,
Frank's life, and then she's just like, that's another scene where she just goes crazy. And to be honest, Elliot's character in this, up till that point, till the costume goes on, I was like, okay, yeah, not bad. But as soon as the costume goes on and she becomes that sidekick, the character, her character is just so much more interesting after. And like the psychology behind that is just, I don't know what you would call that. Like I don't know. It's I'm not a therapist or a psychologist, so I don't even know what you would call that kind of behavior or shift in
borderline
behavior.
personality, I think, is what it would have
Pretty
to come
close,
down
yeah.
to.
Because the
Yeah.
laugh, her laugh when she starts just pummeling criminals and stuff, that crazy laugh of pure ecstasy, enjoyment, sadistic, and oh, it's crazy. It's just crazy. Yeah. And she's over, and when the costume's on, she's just like over sexualized. Her sexual energy is through the roof, and it's crazy. Yeah, like I posted, when I posted we're gonna be talking about this comics, what's his name, shit, I can't remember, talking comments, comics. He's like, yeah, it's the first movie I ever saw where the sidekick rapes the rapes the hero. And there is a disturbing scene where where she kind of pretty much
Puts his mask on him and just hops on him and rides
hops
him.
on him and forces, yeah, like more or less, like he's half awake and she's, yeah, forcing herself on him. And oh, it's just a twisted scene. Twisted.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite movie of his of all time. Like um, a lot of the time I find their character to be pretty whiny in a lot of stuff, but in this, like unhinged, just hysterically funny. Um, since the offset, like well, at least until when she first asked to be the sidekick, and she comes in and is like showing him his their moves, and they're doing cartwheels and
Cartwheels, yeah.
like shadow boxing, and it's hilarious. And
Yeah, because
um,
it's so she's so bad at it, which makes it so hilarious, but so into it, like committed, like like that character, or she, what's her name, Libby is so committed to being this sidekick, like there, it rules her life. Like she becomes that that character. The Bolty is what her sidekick name becomes, is Bolty. Like once she becomes a sidekick and she puts that costume on, Libby doesn't exist anymore. She's Bolty, and that's it. That's who her persona takes over, her personality. Which is pretty freaking funny. Like I enjoyed that. I got a few laughs from the interactions with her, and yeah,
yeah, they worked
it
really
was
well
great.
together. I'd have liked to seen them actually team back up, her and Rain. I think they were pretty well suited with each other, even though, yeah, she was like the really out of control, and he played like this super duper straight man out of the duo, because like he's like literally gets terrified by everything that she does, and he plays it pretty good, because he's
Yeah,
actually really violent and really terrifying himself when he lashes out, but like even he is afraid of her when she's doing her
yeah,
bolty shit.
yeah. And like Frank isn't the most stable person either, because as the movie starts, he's happy, he's married, and then as you see, Liv Tyler plays his wife, Sarah. Eventually, early on in the movie, she leaves him because she has a very checkered past, dealing with drug problems and the such. And when she tries to get clean, she gets a job at the diner because he's a cook at a diner, and that's how they meet. And being the compulsive and addictive personality she has, Frank represents all that's good and innocent. So she irrationally decides to marry him, and that's how he ends up with a wife, is with Sarah through those circumstances, because she thinks because he's wholesome, he'll be her savior. And and then slowly in the beginning of the movie, you see that she slowly goes back to her old ways. She starts to do drugs again, and she eventually leaves him and goes back to the club that she works at, which is run by Kevin Bacon's character, who is Jock. Yeah. And that's when the switch in Frank begins. The emotion, the emotional baggage, and just jump starts, or some wires come loose in his head, and he starts to hear, like, he goes back and talks about how he's seen things as a child and this and that. Then he believes that as he's watching TV, he sees these images, and there's this what's the character? Captain? No. The Holy Avenger. The Christian Avenger. Yeah, the Holy Avenger. Yeah. And then he thinks, when he goes to bed, he gets these visions and stuff, and he thinks God wants him to be a superhero to go save Sarah and bring her back. And he has these visions, and he talks about as a child how he used to have visions and hear voices every once in a while. And there's a scene where he's talking about how he met not Liv, but Sarah, Liv Tyler's character, his wife, and God tells him to marry her. And the funny part is, when you're looking at the end credits, the person who does the voice of God is Rob Zombie.
Is it really?
Yeah, Rob Zombie has that one little part that says, marry her. Well, that's Rob Zombie.
Marry her. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. So that's Rob Zombie.
Yeah, afterwards, I would have known if he would have been, marry her. Yeah. Then I'd have totally known it was him.
Yeah. So that kicks the story off into motion. So then, from these visions, he gets a logo, the logo of that you see with the red helmet and that he has on his chest when he designs his costume. So he designs a costume and goes out on the streets to fight crime, because he believes this is what will help him win Sarah back. And the first scene is just him sitting behind a dumpster waiting for crime to happen, and he's doing his log like nothing's happening, and
I hear something.
I hear something. He puts his tape deck down. He goes and runs. Then he comes back. It was just a box. And then he's like, I'm not going to leave it there. I'll pick it up later. I just don't want to blow my cover. It's just. So yeah. Anyway, his character is not the most stable character either. And then the first time he goes and tries to stop crime is when these two high school kids go to buy drugs. And this is his first encounter as a superhero where he tries to stop a criminal. And this guy is selling him drugs. And then when he sees the transaction go down, he comes bolting across the street and jumps on the guy. And they're wrestling on the ground. And he grabs his mask and turns it so he can't see. Like he's obviously not a superhero, right? So it's kind of funny they're struggling. And when he does that, he starts screaming, "Not fair, not fair." And then the guy rolls him off him into this pile of trash, which had, I think, a diaper in it or something. Yeah, and then he's got like this shitty diaper stuck to him, to his ass. And then two of the other guys, the pot dealer's friends, start coming around, and he starts beating them with, I think, the cover of one of the garbage cans that he fell on. And he's like, "What the fuck, dude?" Like he's like, the criminal's not even taking him seriously. So then when he sees these two other guys come, he just takes off just takes off running. And that's when he comes to realization that he isn't a superhero and he's going to need some kind of weapons. And this is where he goes to the comic shop to get study on how to be a superhero, and that's where he meets Libby's character. And so that's how they meet. And then he wants comics on how to get weapons and so on. So Libby pulls out some comics of heroes that don't have superpowers but that use weapons. So anyway, that's not important which ones, but he gets those and goes back home and starts testing weapons. And you have the one scene where he has a cantaloupe. He's drawn a picture of a face to test weapons out, and basically you only see him test one, which is the weapon he uses, which is the plumber's wrench, monkey wrench. Yeah, and he just hits it, and the cantaloupe just explodes, and he's like, yeah, perfect, So that's how he gets his character. He's got the monkey wrench, the red suit. Now he's ready to go out and fight some crime. And this is where one of the scenes that I think is great is his when he first starts fighting crime. He goes out, he goes back to the pot dealer, whacks him in the face with the wrench. There's a man in a car that's paying for a young boy prostitute to give him a blowjob, and he just smashes the window and pulls him out and beats him with the wrench. What was the other one?
Oh, he hits. It was a rapist, right? Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. No, the guy who's trying to rob the girl in a wheelchair.
Oh, that's what
and
it was,
he tackles. Yeah, he tackles her, and they all fall on the ground. The girl in the wheelchair falls on the ground, and you see all these moments, but then after they round it all back up, after he's done beating them, he's like, "You don't sell drugs." Then he goes to the other one, "You don't molest children. You don't rob crippled people." And he's just like, it's just the scenes, the way they're done. It's so funny. And then he's like, what's the saying again?
Shut up,
crime. So then he's waving his wrench in the air saying, "Shut up, crime." And anyway, that's how he starts. That's how he gets his first real taste of being a superhero. Yeah. And then this leads into the next scene where he's back at the diner, and one of his coworkers is a sous chef or a dishwasher or anything, and he wants to go to the movies, so he asks him to go and get tickets ahead of time. So that the next scene is he's in line, he buys his tickets, he goes in line, and there's this yuppie couple that come and cut in line, really rudely. And then someone in line's like, "Oh man, people shouldn't cut in line like that. It's not right. It's rude." So then, in his mind, these people shouldn't cut in line. So he steps in from out of line and says, "No butting. Get to the back of the line." The guy tells him to go fuck himself. And basically the wires just touch in his brain again, runs across the street into his car, and in the back seat starts getting changed. So you see his underwear, his ass in the window with the little girl saying, "Hey mommy, look." And then then he comes out just walking. He's like, "Hey you, no butting." And he's like, and the guy's like, "Dude, I know who you are. I just talked to you." And before he's even done, whacks him in the forehead with the monkey wrench, and the guy goes down. Then he was with his girlfriend. She starts screaming. He's like, "You butted too." And he freaking gives her a backhand across the face. And they're both on the ground just screaming. And then he comes to his senses, right? Because he's looking around and people are looking at him. So he just takes off running, gets in his car and takes off. And you get, this just illustrates how I mean, I won't say deranged, but unhinged, and the perspective of what a superhero is to him is very, very strange and deranged, right? So,
and one thing you haven't touched on is how effective the effects are, because when he is hitting these people with the wrenches, the gags are really well done. I mean, he is cracking people's faces open. Like this yuppie guy, he straight up it cracks dude's forehead wide open, and yeah, he's just laying there bleeding, screaming, and it looked real. It looks good. Some really good looking effects.
Yeah. The monkey wrench scenes are really good. But those are kind of more the dark humor, the funnier stuff. And in the beginning, I'll go touch back on the beginning. This is his superhero stuff, with the monkey wrench, which is most of this early stuff where he's trying to be a superhero is quite humorous because he flounders it and he isn't very good at it. So a lot of that early stuff is where the humor is in the early parts of his Crimson Bolt.
Also, before he even becomes a superhero, his first interaction with Jock when he's on the car and he's hitting it, dude, you're
Yeah,
hitting my car. I've been nice to you. Kevin Bacon is so good as the bad guy, and this
yeah,
is like,
yeah.
I've been so nice to you. Just, I'm giving you one last warning. Don't touch my car. And he like puts the one finger out and touches. Okay, screw you. That's not the touching I'm talking about.
That's
And
not
like,
the kind of touching. Yeah,
so I'm out of here. He tries to drive away, and he jumps back on the car, and
yeah.
that whole scene was just hysterically funny, man.
And he has his three goons that are always with him, which is one is played by his brother Sean Gunn. The other one is Michael
Mike,
Rooker plays one of his right hand man, and the other actor I'm not familiar with,
he's
Stephen
another. He's one of the
Blackheart.
guys. He brought him over from Trauma. He was henchman in like Romeo and Juliet, and I think he was also in Terra Firma. So yeah, I just think he's one of Gunn's Trauma buddies because there's a lot of his Trauma buddies in this
Yeah,
movie.
and it's of note for the actors too is Nathan Fillion plays the Holy Avenger. I think that's worth noting because he does a pretty good job. I think he's pretty funny as the Holy Avenger, and James Gunn himself has a small role as the demon or the devil, whichever you want to call him. So James Gunn has a funny little role where he's always like
Yeah,
nonstop with the tongue, which I find is just it's cheesy, but it's funny. Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to make high school kids horny, and the Christian Avenger has to stop him. Yeah, it's good
yeah.
stuff.
That's that whole, and it's so cheesy. Like it's so cheesy that it's hilarious, right? It's not. It's made to be campy, and they do a really good job of it. Like I can't.
If it was a
I
real
can't
show,
say
I'd
enough good
watch
things.
it. If it was a real
Yeah,
show, I would watch it, even if it was on the Christian network.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But there is, like we said, some pretty deep, some pretty sad. Even some parts are really heavy. Like when he prays to God about being alone and like why do other people get people to love them, and he's crying, and that's some pretty heavy stuff, and he delivers it really well. Rainn Wilson, he does a really good job as like he has a lot of range in this movie. Then later on, you have what else is there? Like, there's a lot of little parts when they dive into Sarah's past with her sister, how her sister judges her, and how about you always do this, and you get into that delves into like the family dynamics of how people deal with people that have addiction problems within their families, and the stresses of that, and then that leads to a conversation she has with Frank, how she's like, I've never been happy, and Frank's like, yeah, well, I think happiness is overrated. And then they have their first kiss, and you see like their first scene where they have an intimate relationship. She cries nonstop for like the time they're having sex, and she's nonstop crying, and it's a really strange and sad, really sad
It's really uncomfortable, is what it is.
scene.
Like,
Yeah, because you have this person who's just looking for happiness, who isn't really happy with this person, but wants so badly to believe that this person can make him happy. I don't know. I don't know. You could interpret that scene so many different ways. Like what's going on in her head. It's really a tough scene, and I think it's done extremely well. Like they acted the shit out of that scene. I have to admit, it was really, really, really good scene. Then later on, you have the whole Libby, she comes into play after, and I think she adds a little levity to the movie because her character is so off the far end that it's almost not even believable, right? And she adds a little more humor into it later on as we go, and then then it touches on.
well, she also sets up these false expectations. You think that the movie's gonna progress and like they're actually gonna become heroes and do this good thing, and you don't get that at all. And
No,
that's what really kind of is this movie is mean spirited, but in a good way, because like they set you up to just rip that carpet right out from underneath your goddamn feet. Pretty hardcore.
Yeah. And just the twisted dynamic of the two of them. Like there's funny parts, but it isn't a healthy relationship. Like the whole partnership of the two, like they just feed each other's delusions, right? And it just goes out of control because they're feeding each other's delusions of being superheroes and saving his wife, and it just feeds it, and they just feed each other's delusions, and it just escalates to the point where finally they decide they're going to go to Kevin Bacon's place and get his wife back. And what happens is when the night where he decides he wants to do that is when Jalk, which is Kevin Bacon's character, decides to do a drug deal with this big drug guy. So there's some heavy hitters at his house when they go to decide to do this final showdown, as you would say, to go and get his wife back. And there is a very disturbing scene in there too, where the drug dealer comes and they make an exchange. And he had some girls from the dance club that he runs come over for entertainment, and he offers one of his girls to the drug lord, and the drug lord just happens to pick Sarah, who is his girlfriend, and he kind of has that awkward moment where he doesn't want to tell this drug dealer, drug lord, no. So he lets this drug lord take his girlfriend to go upstairs to do whatever the hell he wants with her. And there's that awkwardness that he does so well. Kevin Bacon does it perfectly, where he doesn't like to sit, like he does it like masterfully, like just by not saying anything, just the looks he gives, you see he doesn't like it, but he's not morally the best person in the world, so he lets it happen, right? And you just see it bugs him, and he uses like this backward logic to justify it, like when he tells
when the dude starts thinking your girlfriend's a whore,
then it's time to move on, and he's like, yeah, sure, Jock.
And then you get a really good character moment with Michael Rooker too, because he's not cool with it. He is pretty pissed off at Kevin Bacon, but also he doesn't do anything about it either. Which
no, like the situation is a tough situation because they're like any little thing could go sideways, right? When there's a drug deal like that, then someone gets pissed off, someone shoots another person, so it's a very delicate situation. And later on, as Libby or Crimson Bolt and Bolty show up, the drug dealer takes the Sarah, which is the ex-wife or Jock's girlfriend, upstairs, and he tries to rape her, and that's when she starts screaming. And you can see Rooker's character sitting in a chair, and as she's screaming, you can see he's almost, that's another great scene where he's sitting there and he's almost crying. Like you can see the water building up in his eyes as he's hearing these screams from Liv Tyler, Sarah, which is her character, Sarah, and like with being unable to really do anything about it because of the situation. And that part is really well done. It hits you. It's gut-wrenching, really, to just sit there and be, I wouldn't say he's helpless because he could do something, but I mean, the consequences of that would be,
he's the problem solver. I mean, like he's the guy that actually does all the heavy hitting for Bacon. So he could, if he had balls, step up and do something, which kind of like, you are a little sad when his character gets his over-the-top death, and the really just like that's the weird thing about this whole final showdown is all the deaths are so over the top and kooky, but it's just this disturbing scene that, like, I don't know, like it was weird the way they blended the almost over-the-top comedicness with just the unfunny situation. Like it keeps me uncomfortable the entire film. You know what I mean? It's interesting the way he did it.
I think he had to contrast and juxtapose the two things just to make it more palatable. Otherwise, this movie would be extremely heavy and hard to watch. Like if he didn't do the contrasting and juxtaposition of like the lighter humorous sides with the more serious, extremely dark subject matter, disturbing subject matter, I don't think this movie would be half as palatable as it is if he didn't do that. Like you said, he did a great job of blending the two just the right amount, just to make it so that it made it more an entertainment movie without being off-putting. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And because I mean, like, what the whole thing with the pipe bombs and the way that people were just exploding and stuff, like, it should have been hilarious, but like the whole situation was just so disturbing that
Well,
it's neat the way that at least he attempted to do the
the
scene. You know what I mean?
first one was pretty comedic. Like the first two kills, where
Libby with the Wolverine claws, yeah.
with the Wolverine claw, she jumps out of the tree and she has that maniacal laugh again. As she's doing it, and he's like, shh. She's like, oh yeah, with a big smile on her face after killing the guy and stuff. So that was pretty funny. And then that's when the serious stuff starts because Frank has another encounter where she throws the first pipe bomb, which blows the guy up, and it's like very B movie ish, cheesy kind of. It's kind of funny, and that's where she laughs and she's like, "Oh, Frank!" And this comes to one of the scenes that I thought was really like, this one hit me hard, where she throws a bomb and it works, and they meet up in the long grass right before they get to the house, and then three thugs come out. One shoots Frank. He goes down, hits him in the vest, and she gets shot and she goes down too. And he's trying to breathe, and he looks over and he's trying to talk to Libby, and she's not answering. You see she's laying down. When he rolls her over,
Her fucking head's
and you
gone.
see she got a headshot. I mean, I was like, oh my God. And there wasn't much lead up to it. I find sometimes, like in a movie, that it'll build up to, this character is going to die. Whereas this
That's what
movie, I found
about them building you up. They thinking that they were going to get away with doing this big heroic thing, and like, that's when they pulled the carpet out. That's exactly what I was talking about. When you get to that,
when you get to that scene, you're like, oh man, like then you're starting to think this movie isn't going to have a happy ending. Like, Frank might not make it in the end. Like when you see that part, you're like, okay, this might end with Frank dying at the end, and like you said, like the carpet is pulled from under you. At that moment, I was like, oh shit. And that's where you're saying, the bombs are done cheesy, but after that moment, the tone of the movie gets so serious and so intense. And that's juxtaposed with the rape going on at the same time, because they cut scenes back and forth from outside to inside. And that's where it's like an overload of all this insanity, and you're like, holy fuck. And this is where the movie gets really heavy, and it's a good thing it's only like maybe 10 minutes worth of the movie. Like it lasts maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and it's a good thing, because if that stuff in the movie lasted any longer, like I said, I don't think people could have enjoyed this movie as much as they did. And yeah, so this leads to Frank. That's where he loses it. Once Libby dies, that's where he goes full on Frank Castles, man. He's out for blood. Like where he just stands up and people are shooting at him, he's just yelling and he doesn't care. That's where he channels his inner badass. That's where the real, Crimson Bolt comes out right at that moment. That's where the Crimson Bolt is truly born. And from then on, everything he does after that is pretty badass and heroic. Just when the guys are shooting at him and he just throws the bombs, then he goes in the back, pulls that gun out, and just starts blasting people like he's been shooting forever. Like all those scenes, like he's a killer. And that's when Rooker's character comes out and he sees him and he's like, holy shit. He runs back inside and he's coming towards the house. Well, there's one more kind of funny scene is where you see him walking on the roof.
oh,
And he throws the body down and it smashes through the window and they're looking at it and it's just hanging there and it slowly starts to turn. And on it says, look behind you. And the two guys are like, oh shit. And then he's just there and he starts blasting them away. I love that
straight
scene.
up slasher movie type thing.
Yeah,
like, with
that was great. Yeah, that was a great scene. I love that scene.
The final back and forth between him and Jock was great too. The whole, you think if you stab me to death, the world will really change? I don't think I'll know that unless I try. And,
yeah.
Like it's it's a really effective movie. It really fucks with me in a lot of different ways. Like I said, like I find this movie utterly disturbing, and I've watched a lot of really bad disturbing films, and I'd say that this movie affects me worse than even stuff that I've seen like Human Centipede. Like this one, like the parts of it that are just so real and so tragic are just performed so good by the cast. And it yeah, dude, the movie makes me squirm. It makes me uncomfortable,
Mhm.
especially with the parts where that's the point, you know what I mean? So I gotta say James Gunn really nailed it, but I also gotta say, like, this movie is not going to be for everybody, like, at all.
Definitely not. This movie is what would happen if people really did try to be heroes.
Oh yeah,
Like
they would
this
fuck it
movie
up so bad.
encapsulates exactly what it would be like if some people just decide to throw on an outfit and go out there and try to fight crime. Like this is the most realistic superhero movie you'll ever freaking watch. Like, I mean, like if we don't live in a fantasy world where people can, have superpowers and like in our real world that we live in, this is how it would probably more than likely go down.
Yeah,
Like
you can mean well all you want, but like, yeah, chances are you're gonna mess up and hurt somebody really bad, and
that
that's
doesn't
that's
deserve
what
it,
you learn.
or
Yeah,
yeah, like we're Libby, Bolty. She just wants to go out and fight crime, right? And she gets bored. Oh, it's so boring. This is what you do. You just sit around waiting for stuff to happen. And that's where she's like, oh, the guy keyed the car. He's a really jerk. What's his name? Jeff or Jerry, or I can't remember.
yeah, something like
And
that.
that's where the first one. And it's, so he's like, oh, yeah. And, she almost kills a guy. The first person she goes and fights, she almost kills him. Like,
Well,
or the,
not just that, she disfigures him too. Like she takes that candy bowl, smashes it over his head, and like there's like all that glass just stuck in his face. Like I said, like the effects works
yeah,
really good, and like that
yeah.
that wound in particular looked really real. And yeah, it's like she disfigured that guy and was gonna murder him because she got caught up in her power trip. And I yeah, it's pretty strong stuff.
Yeah, and after just the end too, the resolve, the final outcome of the movie is he does save Sarah from Jock. She does get clean, but in the end, she ultimately leaves him anyway. And like, obviously, she would, right? This guy's obviously not well. He needs help. She does stay in contact with him, and in the end, he realizes he was there to save her, to help. Like God, he
They
how
didn't
is it?
make
How
it.
does he?
They didn't make
How
it
does
good.
he?
They didn't cover good enough, but what I took away from it was she was never supposed to be his lover. She was his family. She gave him family. Her family
Yeah,
became his, and like they took him in, and he gets the drawings and he gets the love and everything that he always wanted, but he doesn't get the nookie.
no,
So
no. But it's a pretty like, and the way
but
he
it doesn't
delivers
seem to
that final
bother him.
scene. No, but that final scene where he like that's what I'm saying. Rainn Wilson's range in this movie is really good. Where he's sitting on his bed and he's looking at all the pictures with the music, and he's just crying and looking at those pictures. I mean, it's pretty heartfelt. He
He's
did an amazing job in this movie, like from start to finish. Like I can't think of a single scene that he didn't just knock it out of the park.
Yeah, I gotta agree because before this, I think I'd only seen him because I didn't watch The Office. I think I'd only seen him in House of a Thousand Corpses, and I'm like, okay, he's the
Okay.
guy that got turned into Fish Boy. So like, I didn't really know too much about him, but like, yeah, he really portrays all the different aspects, and like he doesn't turn his silly on as much as you would think he would in a movie like this. Like a lot of his stuff is actually really straight reactionary type stuff to other people's crazy, which
Mhm.
is kind of funny because he's probably the craziest guy in the film, but or you're led to believe that at the beginning, but as it goes on you notice that like these kind of more regular people are even more insane than he is,
Well,
or
like I
just
said,
as crazy. Yeah.
every character in this has some kind of delusions or baggage that they can't deal with, right? Every single character in this is extremely flawed to the point of it being ridiculous. Um,
But I'd say
yeah.
everybody showed up and everybody acted their asses off in this. Michael Rooker was great. Kevin Bacon was phenomenal. I'm not usually a huge fan of Liv Tyler. She was great. I'm not too, like I said earlier, I'm not a huge fan of Elliot Page, but he was amazing in this film. Everybody performed. It's just it's a really hard movie for me to watch over and over again. You know what I mean? And, like after watching it for this show, I saw it like when it came out, and I don't think
Mhm.
I'll have to watch it again anytime soon because it's effective as fuck when it comes to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's heavy, like you said, it's definitely heavy. But this, if we're speaking of Elliot Page, this leads me to wonder. Another question is, he's still on Umbrella Academy. The first 2 seasons, he was acting as Ellen Page, and the character in the first 2 seasons is a girl. So I'm wondering, is in the third season of Umbrella Academy, is that character going to transition as like he did? Like I'm wondering, like how are they going to handle that situation?
It is going to be weird because Bob Sheehan's character is already a trans person as well, or at least they're somewhat like he
Yeah, it
definitely gender bends
alludes
quite a bit,
to, yeah, like non, yeah, yeah,
non-binary esque
yeah,
activities.
yeah, kind of vibe to it for sure. And that character is great.
Yeah.
Probably one of the best characters. Well, no, I wouldn't say the best because they're all really good on that show. I love that show. That's a great show.
Yeah, Bob Sheehan just steals the show no matter what he's in, though. He did the same thing on Misfits, you know what I mean? He just,
Yeah,
but yeah, in Umbrella Academy,
yeah,
he definitely, because much like in this, man, like he is a funny little fucker, but he can bring the drama when he needs to.
yeah,
Like when he comes back from Vietnam in that first season and he's just
yeah,
ripped apart. Oh my God, did he break your heart or what, man?
yeah,
Bob
yeah,
Sheehan's incredible. So,
yeah.
yeah. It'll be kind of funny to like if they both are trans and like they swap clothes or something. I don't know. That'd be neat. I mean, definitely
I don't. I'm
interesting.
Yeah. I'm really curious. I can't wait for the next season. One, because I love the show, and two, I'm really interested to see how they handle this situation. Are they just gonna not say anything and just, oh, the character is gonna be a he now, or because even then the storyline was that she was a lesbian. The character was a lesbian, right? And that's that's confirmed in the second season. And now are they going to take it a step further and follow pretty much Elliot's path? Like went from to being a lesbian to now being transitioned to a man. Like, are they going to follow that same path for that character in the movie as he did in his life? I'm wondering. I'm curious if they're going to do it. Like, it would make sense, right?
Yeah,
I don't think it would be.
and
It
it would
wouldn't
be good
change the
too.
story. Yeah, it would add a little subplot to the story, but it wouldn't change the overall arcing story, like the bigger story. So I don't think it would really be an issue. I haven't seen too many people, like any articles or any interviews regarding this all that much, how they're going to handle that situation, but I don't think it should be an issue.
Nah, and it's like something that Gerard would do in one of his comics, anyways. I mean, he's very LGBTQ friendly.
Yeah.
I think that he's a couple letters himself in that rainbow. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think that he would mind. And I think if they do have the character follow Elliot's trajectory of life, it would be kind of neat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at least as an
And
actor to get to
maybe,
play a
yeah,
role
as an
that
actor,
follows.
yeah, follows your, like, follows her path, so, or his path, so it could be an example for other actors that, like, it doesn't matter, you can do this. Like it won't affect your career, right? Like because this could have, if we're living in different times, this could have been the end of his career. If this happened, let's say 20 years ago, maybe this would have been the end of his career, right? But in today's day and age, I mean, it's more than acceptable. I mean, even it's even encouraged now. So I think it probably happened at the perfect time for Elliot to do this. Rating, like, how old is Elliot now?
I would say
Probably
they're.
mid 30s, beginning of 40s.
Oh man, I don't know. I remember
Younger than that, maybe.
when they first showed up in X-Men, he was only I think 16, and so they're
So
really young. So I'd
early
say
30s
probably
then.
early 30s. Yeah, would
Yeah.
be my guess for his age.
So that was a big risk to take. early 30s. You're right in the prime of your career, and to take that step and say like, this is important to me, and if people can't accept it and I don't have a career anymore, so be it. Like kudos to Elliot, man. That's a great thing, brave thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, despite my dislike of some of the acting that they've done, they've been a trendsetter their entire career. I mean, he has, and that like it's just cool that I found another way to keep that ball rolling. I mean, keep relevant, keep it cool, and it's not off brand. You know what I mean? So
no, and it wasn't. It's not something that was like from one day to the next. It was very gradual transition. Like you could see it coming for years now, right? So when it was announced,
she came out when she was really well. Back when he was a she, they came out when they were really young. I think they were I think he was only 20 or something around there when they came out as a lesbian. So yeah, I guess it took a lot of soul searching, a lot of time to be like, well, I don't just like girls, like I'm a boy.
Yeah,
you know, to come to that,
identify as a boy.
to act, because you got to think that even if they are younger than us, they have the same, almost the same social programming. So like we were told that, you know, you have to, you know, follow what, you know, these rules, you know what I mean? And that's why that it's kind of rare for people our age. But the younger generations, I'm glad that they're just going with this, because at the end of the day, man, all you need, if you can be happy for at least 1 hour a day, good. That you're living a good life. And if you know, identifying as something other than what lays between your legs gets you that hour of happiness, then I ain't gonna deprive anybody of that, man. Like they deserve it just like anybody else.
But I just would love it if the community could just be a little more patient with guys my age, because sometimes I don't get it right.
Yeah,
with the whole
pronoun
thing. Yeah, I still have a
slip up every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not that used to it. Like I have nothing. Like I have no problems with it. It's just sometimes it's, you know, I don't know, or I don't pay attention. You know, I see a gender and that's what I go to. So I mean, it's just.
Yeah, I got yelled at too many times. So if I don't know for sure, I just go with they. From now on.
Yeah,
and it seems to be acceptable, right? For most, in most cases, if you don't know rightly, if you say they, you're in good. You're at least trying.
In good standing, yeah. It's not that I'm not trying, but you know, sometimes I slip up every now and then.
But yeah, season 3 of Umbrella Academy, it's going to be the last one too, right? I think they said they're going to be wrapping it up with 3.
I'm not sure. I haven't really followed that much on it, but it wouldn't surprise me. Netflix often does 3 seasons, and then they cut the shows loose after 3.
Well, they don't really follow the comics too closely, and I think they're only I think he's got the 4th graphic novel coming out, but who knows how long it's going to take him to write, because he's back with My Chemical Romance again, and like I don't know if he's going to be able to write books while he's on tour and shit.
Well, he just finished up the last the Killjoys series. Just finished up a few months ago, a couple months ago, I think.
He did that last graphic novel for Killjoys, and then he did a graphic novel for Umbrella Academy for when he hit the road, so he'd have at least 2 last books for his fans for a while, type of thing.
For a little while to hold them over, yeah.
Which, I mean, I wish that they'd let him do one more Doom Patrol too, man. His Doom Patrol was so good.
Yeah, I think I read the first arc of that. It was pretty. That's with when the Young Animal label, right? The imprint.
Yeah, that was his whole thing. Yeah, with that and Cave Carson and Mother Panic. I loved all those books. Milk Wars is the only Big 2 event that I actually like. I'll admit to loving. Milk Wars is the shit.
I haven't read it yet. I have the trade, but I haven't read it yet, so I'll have to get on that eventually.
Oh, you'll enjoy it, man. It's just fun.
Yeah,
it's a good lambasting. I like that it made fun of both Doomsday Clock and metal at the same time.
Yeah, that's cool. I like those kind of comics, man. You know, I like my
I'm
my
just
lighthearted,
surprised
offbeat.
DC let him put it out. Well, because like it was coming out alongside those books, and he lambasts the hell out of both those events pretty good.
But I think DC's pretty good with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they seem to have a lot more of a touch with what's going on and with what they can get away with, joking around with their fans than
Mhm.
Marvel does. Like Marvel seems to still be a little too serious with their shit, whereas DC's at least they've hired enough people that they can let them in on the jokes, and like the editorial guys at least know that like these in jokes are okay. The fans actually like them, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas Marvel wouldn't dare do that, I don't think. Put out an event that's making fun of two of their big ass events that
Big
they're
ass events, yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see. Who knows? You never know, right?
right.
It could happen. It won't, though.
Not,
Well,
not with current leadership. I don't know, but we'll see. I have hopes that Marvel will get back to being as good as they were in the Now era, because I absolutely loved Marvel Now. It's just
oh,
somewhere around All New, All Different. They kind of lost the script and everything just became event, 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 event. Like it was bad enough when there was one a year, but now you get like 4 or 5 of them a damn year, dude. Who the hell has that much money and
yeah. Some
gives
are
a crap?
just concentrated to like the core titles of like Avengers, X-Men, and then you have the overreaching one like the King in Black. But even even X-Men now, there's like 12 titles. So when they have an event, that's 12 books that are tied into that. So, but even X-Men now, the whole overreaching story kind of dabbles in each issue, right? It, it's it's a commitment. I find 12, 12 issues a month if you want to get in on all the X titles and stuff. It's a little too much as far as I'm concerned.
Word.
There's so
Well,
many other things I'd love to read that I just won't commit to that because there's too many other books I want to read.
Marvel doesn't do themselves any favors because like they have the most expensive books on the market. Their trades are 4 issues and they're $18. They want
Okay.
$5 for their books, and they're still full of ads. Like I don't know. Like people try to be like, well, Image is just a little bit cheaper. Yeah, but I don't have ads shoved in there, and yeah, it's a little bit cheaper. In most Image books, you get like 5 to 8 issues in your $17 trade paperback, whereas Marvel, it's the skinniest little trade you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
Couple issues stuck together. But we're way off topic.
Topic. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's circle this back around to Super. It is a really odd, really quirky film. It really reminds me of, like I said, like a more palatable trauma film, a little more easyable, accessible trauma film, but it's definitely on a hard, disturbing level. But if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, and if you want to see some really strong performances from some actors you wouldn't expect it, like this is a neat little film to check out, especially if you're a fan of Gunn's work. Because as I've noticed, a lot of people don't really know this film or Slither. Like
Slither. Yeah.
they kind of just found out about him with the Guardians films, which is cool. I mean, those are arguably my favorite of his work. So, but I don't know. This is definitely at least worth a watch once. You know what I mean? Give it a chance, because
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to see anything else like it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love this movie. Like, I know you find it a little harder to watch, but I appreciate it for all its little quirks and the darkness and the heavy subject matter is extremely well handled and paced and broken up by like he goes, but it'll be heavy in the beginning, then it'll get a little more lighthearted and a little more funny, then it gets a little serious, and he breaks it up like you say quite well, and then at the end he really goes for the gut punch, and he
But
delivers a pretty strong emotional movie, all
yeah,
things considered.
well, for the people that think that James Gunn's only capable of dick and fart jokes, man, they need to at least check this out to see that like he does have a range, and
Yeah.
he can do drama, he can do heartbreaking drama very well.
Hmm.
And still have dick and fart jokes pop up every now and then in it too. I'm not going to act like this movie didn't have hysterically funny parts, but it is not on par with even like Slither or any of his other like kind of
No.
humor movies. Like this movie is the funny parts in it are very stark. It's very gallows. So
Yeah, like he doesn't rely on campiness as much in this for the humor. It's more a situation, like situational humor, kind of like the situations are so ridiculous you have to laugh at it, and they're so extreme and so far fetched that you have to laugh at this a lot of the situations that occur in the movie. So yeah.
at least to break the uncomfortable feeling that you're in too. Like sometimes when I'm watching those disturbing movies, I have to laugh, just to get the squirms out of me. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I think that a little bit of that might be in this. Um, yeah, dude, this is
and the
it's a one
runtime,
of a kind film, and it's not very long either,
an
which
hour
is
and a
good.
half, perfect. And you know how I am about runtimes. I'm a stickler for runtimes, man. So hour and a half, and it doesn't lag. It doesn't seem long. Any parts, the pacing is perfect. Like you watch that movie and you're like, oh shit, yeah. Like there's no, I didn't have a single part in the movie where I'm like, oh, this is starting to drag. You know, where you're like, fuck. Like the pacing was really well done. The runtime's perfect. I have no
Well,
complaints on that front.
I think with the subject matter and what the film was, if he made it a slog in any way, I think it would have completely destroyed it. So I think that
Hmm.
like he had to keep it edited tightly like that. So at least you had the
And he didn't
pacing
probably.
didn't slog you out.
It's a lower budget movie, so runtime is extremely important on smaller budget movies. So yeah, that probably had a lot to do with it as well.
Yeah, this thing was basically he did it with his own production company and released it himself from what I understand. I don't think that this actually has any big corporations tied to it.
I didn't notice actually. I saw in the beginning. I didn't realize that was his production company. The little logo in the beginning. Oh, and that makes me think. I love the intro credits.
Oh,
The
the cartoon,
animation. Oh, it's so good. It's worth watching it just for the intro credits. It's so well done. I loved it.
well, what I
Yeah.
like is how crude the animation is, but the faces on all you can tell who they are, man. Like the Kevin
Yeah,
Bacon one looks just like
and
him.
so simply. They're done so like simplistic, but it's like you said, they just nailed it perfectly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can tell who was who. I mean, it was done really
yeah,
good.
yeah. It was really good. Yeah, I love the intro for that.
Got a really good soundtrack too, man. A lot of kind of garage punk type stuff all the way through it.
Hmm.
Some really good tracks. Um, I like that what the Calling All Destroyers song from the beginning theme too. Like that's a really good little track. So yeah, this movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
it shows his because everyone loves the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, right? The music that was put into that to accompany a lot of the scenes, and you get a little taste of that in this movie, like how he pairs tracks with scenes and how they fit, and he really picks some great tracks to accompany a lot of the scenes in this movie.
yeah, it's it's definitely like I was saying, one of a kind type of film. Yeah, if you saw Kick-Ass and you wanted something even more hardcore and brutal, like definitely check this out. I mean, like that's kind of how I would describe this. Like if Trauma did Kick-Ass, but with good
But even
actors.
even more realistic though. This is
Yeah.
there's nothing fictional really about this. This could be like call it a superhero movie, call it a drama, call it what you want, but it's all pretty much based in more or less reality. There's nothing.
Well, it's a pretty ambitious film to make kind of as your second directorial debut because I mean he had written films before this, but this was actually his second film that he directed, and for him to
Directed.
come out of left field and make something that's so just odd and different and
Mm,
quirky is it's pretty ballsy in my opinion, and I think it
mm.
it kind of worked because after this film he got Guardians, and look at him now.
Guardians. Yeah,
He's got one of the biggest movies that are supposed to come out this month, this year, which I'm really excited to see, Suicide Squad.
but I think it's great because it showed his range. Like you said, he went from Sliver to this, and then so it showed his range. And like you said, he worked with the Trauma, so and Guardians, I think, was a movie that Disney was taking maybe more risks with, because it was a lesser known property. So they took a bit of a risk with Gunn, but man, they went hit it out of the park by taking a risk on him.
I sure think so, and I'm really happy that they hired him back because I never believed a word of that shit that they tried to say about him. So
And
I know he's an edgelord, I know he's an asshole, and I know he's got a gross sense of humor, but I don't think he's a bad person at all. So
yeah, and like you said, me too. I'm pretty hyped for that Suicide Squad movie. I think it looks like it's going to be a pretty good one.
well, I mean, out of the DCEU movies so far, the first one's my favorite. So, like, yeah, him bringing my favorite characters back, Rick Flag and Captain Boomerang. I'm just really excited to see what he does with them, man. Like, plus, I mean, the rest of the cast is just really neat, man. Like John Cena playing.
I like, you say what you want, but I enjoy John Cena. I think he does great in most of the movies he's done that I've seen.
Yeah, I've enjoyed him. I don't know his wrestling. He's after my time of watching that shit, but I've liked him a lot. I'd have to say that like probably my favorite role was him in Bumblebee. I thought he was really funny as the soldier in that. I don't know if you saw Bumblebee.
Yeah, I've seen Bumblebee. Yeah. Like I say, man, every movie I've seen him in the last 5 years, he's been pretty solid. Like in all his roles in the last 5 years, he's really come into his own as an actor, and he's been picking. I think he's been picking his spots probably a lot better too. The roles that he picks are more suited towards his personality, and so it's much easier for him to portray the characters. So, and from the scenes I've seen from Suicide Squads, he looks like he's going to be pretty good. He's going to deliver some of those dry humor, So I'm looking forward to it.
And he got a TV show out of it. Isn't his character getting a show on HBO Max?
Oh, possibly. I didn't hear about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all good, and that's more gravy for James Gunn. So yeah, I love Guardians and stuff, but I kind of want him to go back and make a horror art film again. I kind of miss his old style too, to tell you the truth. I would like to see him kind of step away from big shiny superhero stuff and like do something gross again. But I don't know, Slither Part 2, like I'm down. Get Fillion back, like I'll watch it.
Yeah, and I'll definitely watch anything he does because I've enjoyed pretty much all his films. So, and I'm a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I liked him before I even knew who he was. I mean, like I said, I grew up watching Trauma, and yeah, he worked on Romeo and Juliet, Terra Firma, and Toxie 4. He actually plays like Stephen Hawking in Toxie 4. He actually has like a pretty big part, or I don't know, he's got a couple scenes in it. Yeah, he's such an asshole, but he's hilarious, man. James Gunn is really cool in my book.
What about his brother? Was he part of the gang that when he was over at Trauma?
Yeah, his brother was him and that other guy that were the henchmen in this, like they were always had scenes together in especially in Romeo and Juliet. The two of them were a pair again.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's right. John Cena was good in Psych when he showed up as Jules' brother. Yeah, that was fucking hilarious, man. I love that show. But
I've never seen Psych, so
you've never seen Psych. You'll love it, dude.
Oh yeah, I've seen it on. I think that it's on Netflix, but I've never queued it up to watch it.
Check it out, dude. I think you'll get a kick out of it. It's one of the
seasons?
I think it did 7, and they have 2 movies.
Holy shit, 7 seasons?
Well, wow. It's a USA show, so I think that they only had like 9 episodes a season. They didn't do like the 24 episode seasons, but yeah, they had a pretty good run.
Okay. I'll have to give that a go then.
It's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen, man. I don't watch many comedy shows, but Psych is one of the ones that, I came back every week just to bust a gut because it's literally that funny.
Cool.
But yeah, I really hope we kind of talked some of you guys into maybe giving Super a chance and, checking out some of James Gunn's earlier stuff because, I mean, the guy, he's definitely done come up in Hollywood, but his roots are radical and they're definitely worth checking into because the guy, you could say he's all about dick and fart jokes all you want, but at the same time, in my opinion, he's also a visionary. He just has a crude sense of humor on top of it, and yeah, dude, like just go ahead and give this
Yeah.
a shot.
He definitely flexes the director's muscles in this, man, for sure.
But yeah, this is episode 7 of Buzz Bites. Really happy that we've got this show this long into 7 episodes already, because this was just a side project, and man, we almost have more fun doing this than we do the regular show. But until next time, this is Buzz Bites, a product of Pink Buzz, coming at you from Graphic Vandalism, and that means don't stop reading, don't stop watching awesome movies, and don't stop supporting great music.
Take it easy, y'all.